Okay. I call this meeting to order at 3:32 p.m., 12/21/2022. Please mute your microphones and stand for the flag salute. One, two, three. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks for that. City Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Yes, Chair Morphin. Chair Morphin.
Here.
Vice Chair Dare.
Here.
Commissioner Brown.
Here.
Commissioner Bustamante.
Here.
Commissioner Edry.
Here.
Commissioner Perez.
Here.
Commissioner.
I think you said Stossel, so I'm here.
Stossel, yes. You have a quorum.
Great. City Clerk, do we have any changes to the agenda?
There are none.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion.
Is there a second?
I second.
Please state your name when you make a motion.
Perez.
Ron Dare seconds.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Perez, seconded by Vice Chair Dare to approve the agenda. I'll call the roll. Chair Morphin.
Yes.
Vice Chair Dare.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Commissioner Bustamante.
Yes.
Commissioner Edry.
Yes.
Commissioner Perez.
Yes.
Commissioner Stossel.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. Now we will take public comments from members of the audience.
There are none.
No raise hands. Okay. Please, we will go now, move forward to presentations.
Item number 1 is presentation on the Environmental Sustainability Action Plan Update Project, and Environmental Control Director Agent will present the item.
Good morning, Commissioners. Stephanie, can you share your PowerPoint? Good afternoon again. Sorry, I want to thank you all for coming. Happy holidays. Today we want to present to you the sustainability action plan that we've been working on, and also introduce the consultants that we're working with. Stephanie, if you can advance the slide, please. So I want to introduce the team to you and give you a little bit of background on the project. And then I will have our consultant, which is ESA, not only also introduce themselves, but to kind of update what we've been doing and what are our next steps. So we're excited to kind of get this thing going, and we appreciate you guys, having this thing, having this project moving forward. So on the city side, we have all city departments involved working on this, updating the sustainability action plan. And as I mentioned, we brought on Environmental Science Associates. They go by ESA, and then with also their consultants to help us update that plan that was originally developed in 2011. And we want to bring it up to date. And so this is what we're working on. Next slide, please. So just to give you a little background on this project, City of Vernon, as you can see on the picture, they put out a sustainability action plan in 2011, which was a really great, progressive, forward-thinking sustainability action plan. Since then, we all know things have changed, climate change happened, electrification of vehicles, all these other things that have come up. The plan was basically a little outdated. So we came to the commission, we kind of discussed this, that we want to get the plan updated to kind of meet our current need. We did put an RFP together, and ESA was the successful candidate bid for it, and we've been working with them. And so far it's going well. They're going through the plan, seeing what city have done, what has happened in Vernon, and then what can be done moving forward. So really, that's why we want to update the plan. We want to make sure that it's current. It have the current technology, current information, current what is happening, not only in Vernon, but what else is around us. For example, since the plan was put forth in 2011, the state have passed, different measures. One of them being SB 1383 to make sure that organics are not going to landfill. So we want to capture all those as we work through updating the plan. Next slide, please. So with that, I want to introduce the team from ESA, which will be Jeff, Cotton, we have Larry, Cass, and Stephanie, who are also joining us today. And Jeff will kind of lead us with the project overview. And I think he will pass it on to Larry, and then we'll wrap it up with Stephanie. So Jeff.
All right, thanks, Freddie. Yes, Jeff Caton with ESA. Really pleased to be here with you all today to get you updated on what we're doing with the sustainability plan. I'm the project director on the project. I'm joined by Stephanie and Larry, who you'll hear more from in a moment. But we're really excited to be part of this project, as our team has been working on climate and sustainability issues in the Gateway Cities region for many years now, and we really see this as an exciting project and a unique opportunity to steer a city like yours, an industrialized city with a strong business community, towards meaningful and measurable progress on sustainability. So I'm going to have Stephanie go through a few slides now. She's our PM, and she'll provide an overview of the project and the main steps that we're going to take to develop, or that we've already started on, to develop baselines and background information to engage with your community, with the business community, with the residential community, and to develop the plan. So Stephanie, why don't you, I think there's probably a slide that I'll jump back in on, but I think the next one you're going to cover, the next couple.
Sure. Thank you, Jeff. And thank you all for having us here. The goal is for this plan to serve as a comprehensive strategy for the city to address sustainability with policies, programs, and actions that can be implemented in the short term and the long term. And the project is broken out into 3 phases, or 3 tasks, as shown here. We're on the first task right now and wrapping that up, which is data collection, data analysis, and existing conditions. So that's looking at the city's existing plans, programs, and policies, as well as others at the regional and state level that are relevant to Vernon. And we're capturing those, as well as a baseline conditions across the sectors that the plan will be covering. And those are, we'll show those on the next slide. And this phase also includes an overview of the climate change impacts and vulnerability in Vernon. The second phase that we'll be doing is engagement and outreach. We'll be putting out a survey and hosting stakeholder workshops beginning early next year. And the goal for those is to help develop the strategies that will ultimately feed into the plan. And then lastly, developing the draft and final plan. So these are the areas that we're looking into, and a lot of these are carrying over from the 2011 plan. Air quality and greenhouse gas emissions, climate change and resilience, waste, energy, food, water, transportation, and new development. Here's the project schedule. We're just about wrapping up on task 1. We have a draft existing conditions report that is being reviewed by city staff, and we're starting to plan for engagement and outreach. Throughout all these tasks, the project is being guided by a steering committee, and we'll have a few slides on that shortly as well. This is a brief look at the climate impacts that we're seeing now and expect to see in greater intensity in Vernon and across Southern California. Primarily extreme heat and rise in maximum temperatures and the frequency and duration of extreme heat days. We're also expecting to see longer and more severe droughts, worsening air quality, and much of this is due to pollution from wildfires and extreme storms, rain, and risks of flooding. And I think here I'm going to ask Jeff and Larry to take us through the next few slides.
Yeah, I can jump in on this one. As most of you, I'm sure, have been aware, the state has been very active in recent years, developing policies and passing new laws that help to push the entire state to be more sustainable across all economic sectors and through local and regional planning processes. One of the major laws here, and a lot of these are really related to climate change, which the state's been very focused on, but as state laws, Senate Bill 32 and Assembly Bill 1279, these really grew out of AB 32, which you may be more familiar with, that required greenhouse gas emissions to be reduced by substantial amounts by 1990, I'm sorry, compared to 1990 by 2030, and then by 2045. And then there are state regulations targeting water conservation, clean electricity, green buildings, electric vehicles, reduction of air pollutants, and making our transportation systems more sustainable through reducing vehicle miles traveled, whether that's active transportation or better public transit systems. And then there's Senate Bill 1383 that Freddie mentioned, sets targets for a reduction of organic waste. It targets organics because when organics make it into landfills, they decompose anaerobically into a powerful greenhouse gas known as methane. And then cities are required to consider climate change in their general plan process. And that's not just through the CEQA analysis or CEQA assessment of planning of that plan, but by considering but also looking at the safety element in particular. That's Senate Bill 379 that requires safety elements to consider climate hazards and strategies for adapting to climate change. So the sustainability plan is really going to be looking, across all these areas and taking these laws and policies into consideration. I think Larry, passing it over to you on this one, right? Or maybe it's back to Stephanie, I think.
No, sorry, I was just muted there. Hi, everyone, I'm Larry Cass. So we met with I guess I should introduce myself a teeny bit more. I'm going to be dealing mostly with the materials, developing as much of a green economy, circular economy as possible, including food and the SB 1383 considerations for this plan. So ESA, as well as our subcontractor on transportation, met with the project, the steering committee on November 3rd. And the project steering committee includes two of your very own Kathy Brown and Ron Dare, representing you, the Green Vernon Committee, as well as members from the City of Vernon and other stakeholders, the Vernon Chamber of Commerce. And the purpose of this meeting was to get your input on the project overview, the preliminary findings from our existing conditions report. Stephanie, can you go to the next slide? So in that meeting, we had several guiding questions that we were put to the steering committee to try to get input, including where do you see opportunities or challenges for Vernon? Are there programs that can be improved or expanded, or new programs that should be introduced? And what opportunities are there for businesses to get more involved in sustainability? And of the topics that Stephanie brought up below, or the topics that are listed to the right there that Stephanie talked about, which are of the greatest significance to the community of Vernon. So from that discussion, the overall sense that we got was that climate change was the primary issue of concern. And here on this slide, the topics are listed in order sort of how they came out in terms of level of concern. Then climate change was especially relevant as it relates to truck emissions and public transit improvements. Another big concern was fiscal sustainability, as it enables the city to have the resources to develop and implement programs and remain a vital business center. Other issues that were of high concern included materials and waste, particularly industrial waste and recycling, water usage, including conservation and use of sustainable practices such as gray water systems, and the need to reduce dependence on imported water. And then air quality and pollution came up, particularly exposure to toxins in the air and water, and energy efficiency, greenhouse gas emissions in relation to traffic and the transportation sector, and then food supply and where our food is coming from, and considering how local that can be made. So those were the outcomes from the steering committee meeting in November, where we got a sense of what's really important and a priority to that group of stakeholders.
Thanks, Larry. And lastly, or our last slide for this section, the existing conditions report, we're working on getting this finalized. City staff is reviewing this, and we will be addressing comments in the next couple of weeks and turning that around. But the report provides an assessment of the existing policies, programs, and actions across all of the sectors that we just looked at. And it also shows preliminary recommendations for strategies that we'll want to dive further into with the stakeholder outreach. And so our next steps, planning for outreach and engagement. We expect to have a survey launched in January and have stakeholder workshops running through March or April. After that, planning for future steering committee meetings. The next one is being scheduled for January 19th. And these are based on our project milestones. So we'll have these meetings approximately every other month. And then finally, the draft and final plan developed starting in the spring and going through late summer or fall of 2023. And that is all. Thank you again. And we're here if there are any questions or comments.
Hey,
Hello, Stan. Hello.
there you go. Thank you. Hi, Stan. How you doing?
Doing well. I two questions. One actually surprised me a little bit. The canopy, the tree canopy. I didn't know there was much we could do in Vernon to help with that. I mean, what are your thoughts about that, or what's the goal?
Stephanie, I haven't looked at the Tree People
There we go.
study. I think you have, right? Did you review that?
Yes, this is a study that was recently completed by the Gateway Cities Council of Governments and Loyola Marymount University in partnership with the city. So they took a look at the existing tree canopy in the city, and they found currently 2% of the city's land cover has canopy, and up to 51% of the land cover is possible for tree canopy. There are some, caveats there, like for example, some land could be private land or found not suitable for tree canopy because of utilities or other, underground issues or things of that nature. So just keeping that in mind, but their number shows up to 51%. They did put out a final report, and that was part of our review for the existing conditions report. And I believe it includes strategies for prioritizing those tree plantings in the future. So the city is looking at funding to get trees to be planted. And then from the report where it shows like where there was a community engagement part of that, and it shows where the community wanted to see more greening. And a lot of it was along active transportation routes, especially for employees.
You know, I'm old enough to remember there was a play, a tree in Brooklyn. And I always thought of Vernon was kind of in the same situation. Are you looking at it for carbon, or are you looking for cooling buildings or whatever? What was the purpose of the? No, I support it. I'm just kind of curious. What's
I mean,
the
I don't know
goal?
what I haven't seen the study that Stephanie is referring to, but we certainly see opportunity here to help reduce urban heat islands, for instance. I mean, and to absorb air pollution contaminants. The carbon value there is something there, but it's usually doesn't really amount to a large amount when we're talking about urban trees. But there are other co-benefits that we see as really key here, and community beautification.
So we're not going to be another Amazon based plants.
Well, I one thing, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Stephanie, but one thing I remember standing out from that Tree People Urban Canopy report is that they're using canopy a little bit loosely here. That it's more sort of vegetation, greening. It doesn't necessarily mean an overarching canopy, but they are considering those considerations to help people have shade. But other considerations that they're putting to the foreground are water tolerance or drought tolerance in terms of choosing landscape, as well as prioritizing native plants from the region, which also enhances their drought tolerance goal.
And are there any the other commissioners know I had a stroke, so you need to bear with me sometimes. Is there the littoral, the water, the river? Can we use any of that river for any of the canopy stuff?
We haven't gotten that far into it to answer those kinds of questions. That's a great question, though. You mean for water supply for
Yes.
irrigation?
Yes. Yeah. Second thought, changing gear to the next earlier page about the issues of concern. And it's funny because I was looking at it from top to bottom, and I actually, this is the old Venn diagrams. I kind of think these are all interconnected type stuff. Instead of saying this is item 1, item 2, item 3, item 4, I think that it should all be integrated one way or the other rather than going after 1, 2, 3, 4. Just a thought.
Well, that's a great observation, and we actually emphasized that in the steering committee meeting and made a point that these are not, in isolation. There's a lot of overlap here. When you're working on transportation or water or food supply, you generally have a climate change, angle on that as well, or repercussions.
Thank you much. Thank you for the report too.
Question, it's just clarification, really. So this final sustainability plan, would these be recommendations that the city's going to recommend to businesses, or is this going to be, how would the recommendations be implemented, so to speak?
Well, it's really a holistic look at all aspects of sustainability, with things that the city can do, things that the business community can do, things that residents can do, and then more of a policy document or a plan that will suggest programs that could be implemented to achieve the goals that we come up with in this plan. But it's not, I don't, at this point, we're not seeing it as prescriptive necessarily, but it's a plan that would need to find funding, need to find partners, need to determine who's going to take ownership of various programs and plans.
More like a progress report. Okay.
Well, more like a plan that would
Plan.
it's a roadmap for achieving these things, but then the progress report would be, well, how are we doing against this plan? You might want to put a progress report into play, like a monitoring program every year to see how you're actually doing. And that was one of the things we heard from Freddie. He says, well, this plan was developed in 2011, but we don't know how we're doing. There haven't been any metrics put in place. There haven't been any, and nobody's been monitoring how we're doing against the goals that were in that plan. So we're revisiting everything that was in that plan, including those actions that were identified. Has the city started initiating any of these actions? Have they completed them? And, knowing what we know now, 10 years on, what's missing in the plan?
Thanks for that.
This is Stan back again. One more question. How about and I should know this, but I don't. Does the city have a garden, a garden
Community?
area?
Like a community garden?
Yeah. So they can plant, thinking about the food and all that kind of stuff. Have their vegetables and all that kind of stuff, and we could use local water and some of the waste could be fertilized stuff. Does Vernon even have a community garden?
So Stan, I'll take that. So Vernon Village actually have a community garden at the village. But the city also part of this whole plan, and city is looking forward is, city even looking at the community park in the city, right, as we develop. So this is not only it's a plan, but it's a guide also as we make future plans, what cities are doing, what are the things we need to incorporate with the idea of thinking about climate change and all these other things that falls under, we know how scarcity water is right now. So we want to see what is the best way of, capture rainwater, right? Doing some of these things that happen. So this is what this plan not only will help the city, but hopefully make it available also to businesses as they look for ways to, to kind of reduce all our footprint for what is happening. And Hector, I think I saw a commissioner also have a hands up, and I know my screen is not showing the view, but I thought there was a hands up. Let's see. So one of our commissioners, was it Ronnie?
Yes, it was me. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
hi, sorry.
In order, I have a question about the plan. Are there any estimates for some of the recommendations? Are there any costs or projections for certain expenses in implementing some of the recommendations?
Well, we haven't gotten to the part where we're actually developing the plan, but it is one of the criteria that we're going to be looking at when we develop recommendations for strategies or plans or programs is cost. So we'll be taking that in consideration, in the final plan.
So with your final recommendations, are you going to recommend the most cost-effective approaches?
In general,
versus-
yes. In general, that would be a principle that we'd be adhering to. And then, recognizing that a big part of the community is the business community, and business community has resources that this government does not. That's another aspect of this, is how can we get the business community all rowing in the same direction with the city on sustainability? And we're going to be making a good attempt to engage with that business community and really get their input and find out what's happening in the business community, so we can help leverage that as well.
So with regards to the business community, what effect would it have on the business community with regards to regulations and such things? Is that something that's being discussed or looked into?
It's again, it's one of those sort of principles that we always consider when we're putting together plans like this, is what would the impact be on the business community. When there are many state regulations that the city has no control over, we'll be considering how do those affect the city, but then are there things that the city can do locally? Would the city want to consider passing an ordinance for some aspect of waste management or water management or building, green building, those kinds of things? That's where we would start to consider the cost to the community or the cost to the business community, as in our recommendations for policies or programs.
I could give a quick example of some discussions that we've already been having in terms of the regulations around SB 1383 that are requiring all generators of organic waste to make sure that that ends up getting composted or anaerobically digested as opposed to going to a landfill. And, that may come at a significant cost to a lot of the local businesses because the distances are considerable to get it to those places. So there have been discussions about partnerships, not only to keep that material more local and save on cost, as well as providing a valuable soil amendment. And then in addition, it kind of weaves into the goals of the city park or city community garden, that some of that material is eligible to be used as a contamination remediator, able to detoxify soils that might, be a considerable cost to the city to detoxify in other ways. So you try to look for ways that, the city can encourage collaborations between the business community and itself in order to both save costs as well as accomplish some of the other sustainability goals.
I think Stan has his hands up.
Whoops, get the picture back. Have you looked for the idea of trying to get some grant money for this?
Yeah, that would be one of the outcomes of the plan, is to identify what are the best funding sources for implementing the plan. And there certainly are a lot of new and emerging funding sources that are relevant here through the Inflation Reduction Act, for instance, the Jobs Act, the Federal Jobs Act, and then California's own grant programs, which are quite extensive through the climate change funding, cap and trade funding. So yes, we'll be looking at all those sources for potential funding.
Fantastic, thank you.
So to add to this, Commissioner, this is just one of the first update we want to provide you, right? This is all work in progress. This is right at the beginning. So all the suggestions we appreciate very much. This is really the feedback that as ESA and the city and the commissioner work through this, that we'll take back. But this is really just to update you what the project is. It's really at the beginning. And then as they work through it and recommendation and all those will come back where we are. And this is, I think what was said earlier, the steering committee, which you guys graciously gave us 2 of your members to represent you, is to bring some of this stuff back and have that conversation as ESA work through updating the sustainability plan.
Can I ask a question? It's Martin. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm looking down that list and I go to the bottom, air quality and the emissions control. How much jurisdiction would we have over the air quality control board based out in Diamond Bar here? Because currently we got a company shut down in Vernon because of what their emissions and the stench and whatever their claims are against a company that's been around for 80 years or so. And it's shut down. Where do we get the air quality control board with us to say, or with this plan to say, this is what we got to do to make this thing right, versus shutting down a company? I represent the Teamsters there. You got the Butchers Local 770 there, and you got Engineers Local 501 in there. What do we got to do to save jobs? I know this should create jobs, but still we got a couple hundred people going to lose their jobs here pretty quick.
Well, we certainly would like to know more about that particular issue. If we can get, someone could link us to the story there. And if that's representative of other things that are happening in the city, we should know about it. I mean, the sustainability is not just about the environment, it's about, there's social aspects, there's financial aspects. So we need to, take everything into account here.
Is there anybody there that can contact Marissa over at City Hall?
Well, I don't know how to answer that. You mean at the Air District?
Well, no, Marissa's been involved in the struggles with this company for the last 3 months or so. And the company's Baker Commodities.
And Commissioner Price, you're talking about Marissa from the Chamber of Commerce, right?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. You're right.
Okay, and Marissa is on she's on the steering committee.
Yeah. But it's got to get out there to find out what we collectively got to do, not just one standalone. You know what I'm saying? If there's an effort, let's all get involved in this thing and get these things implemented and find out exactly what we got to do to make this thing right.
Well, we do hope to capture the complexities, behind all these issues. So the more information we have during this phase, the better. So we're aware of, what's going to be feasible, what's going to help the city move forward on their sustainability goals.
Well, will you contact Marissa or do you want me to call her and have her, you can give me a number or go to one of these emails here?
Well, I think we've got Marissa on the other committee. Is that what you're saying, Freddie?
Yes, so Commissioner,
Okay.
Staff will do that.
Okay.
And just also this is an rendering which Baker have to be is on part of what we're working on. So rendering is part of what it's on this already. So I just want to clarify that. And I also want to clarify, I think the sustainability action plan is not a policy document that they're going to develop. It's going to be a plan that the city may develop policy around what the outcome is going to be. So when whatever the recommendation is and there are policies, this is where it will go through either the Green Vernon business. It's a partnership within businesses and cities to come up with policies that will help moving forward. So this plan is basically what it's a guideline. It's what cities should be doing, what we've done, what are the best practices, what are the policies we should be exploring. Those are things that we're looking forward to. So as we make decisions, we have the data, we have the information to make that informed decision.
I'm done.
Any more questions from staff or the staff? Okay, I think we will now go to the consent calendar.
I'm sorry, we do have a couple attendees. I just want to make sure that if they would like to address the commission, they use the raise the hand button down at the bottom of the screen. Give them a couple seconds to find it. I think we're good to proceed with the consent calendar.
Just before we go, I just wanted to thank everyone who provided input at this meeting. It's really important to us to hear. So thank you.
Absolutely. Yes, thanks.
Well done, thank you. We will now go to the consent calendar. Do any commissioners wish to pull the item from the consent calendar? Don't see any hands, okay. Are there any public comments to the calendar?
We have no raised hands on Zoom.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve the calendar?
Commissioner Brown makes a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Martin Perez, second.
Thank you so much. That was fabulous. Motion by Commissioner Brown, seconded by Commissioner Perez to approve the consent calendar. I'll call the roll. Chair Morphin,
Yes.
Vice Chair Dare,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes,
Commissioner Bustamante,
Commissioner,
Commissioner,
Please unmute your mic.
Commissioner
Yes.
Bustamante, we're
Yes.
voting. Thank
Yes.
you. Commissioner Edry,
Yes.
Commissioner Perez,
Yes,
Commissioner Stossel.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. Are there any reports from the commissioner staff? I don't believe they are.
Hi, Commissioner Martin. Yes, quickly, I
Okay.
just want to quickly provide an update on our SB 1383. We did go to council to amend our haulers contract because the city, if you recall, I think in last April, May Council approved the two-bin system in the city of Vernon for trash pickup and organics. So it was approved yesterday at council meeting to move forward. So we're gonna be working with our haulers to implement that as we go forward. As you are aware, that all this was a requirement from the state with SB 1383. So we'll look forward to working with our haulers moving forward to implement our recycling and organics in the city. So I just want to bring that to your attention that happened yesterday.
Yes, I did see the agenda. Is that the franchise list final?
That is correct.
Okay.
With that, I want to say thank you very much. I wish everyone a happy Merry Christmas and a happy holidays. And we're looking forward to working through all these other things, in 2023. But please, if you have any feedback on the sustainability plan, anything you want to see happening, I think you have Commissioner Brown and Commissioner Dare representing on your behalf. Please reach out to them or reach out to me directly, and we'll make sure that it get back to our consultant. So thank you.
Thank you to you, Freddie, and to all. Merry Christmas. Without any further business, I adjourn this meeting at 4:14 p.m.